This is a PDR live streaming tonight, this Saturday night, December 21st, 2024. Please like our live stream, subscribe to our channel for those of you who have not done so already. So, as I was thinking about what video I would be doing for the next live stream, I thought of watching this video that I had seen in the Rational National, I believe is the name of the podcast. Um, and I saw this um, thumbnail here. Let me see if I can pull it up for you guys. And by the way, just to as you will note on these receipts here, notice I have not seen the video. Okay, so I've seen that on my feed here on YouTube, and the title of it says this was fantastic. Communist Jamie Peck. Now, at first, I didn't know who this person was, but then I just looked at their YouTube channel, and I think I've seen her before. Apparently, she's appeared in Sam Cedar's The Majority Report before. So she's, from what I gather here, a communist, which would be kind of slightly a little bit to the left of myself. Um, we shall see. So I didn't know who this was, and I had seen her friend who's on the podcast, the Party Girls podcast, interviewed on CNN, and apparently he was scolded by CNN. I should do a reaction video on that. So her friend, right there, the guy with the blonde hair, right there with the glasses. So he had been interviewed by CNN as to why on earth would people like him even organize a defense fund for Luigi Mangione, and the accused assassin of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do such a thing? And I thought his response was perfect, was brilliant. Um, that people are afforded the supposedly in the United States, people are supposed to be afforded the courtesy of you're innocent until proven guilty, right? And that we have the right to use the courts to mount a defense, even though it's a bunch of BS. Because if anybody even follows any type of legal news or knows a little bit about our justice system, you would know that whenever you go against the state, you're going against not just the DA, the district attorney, you're going against the police, because the police is working hand in glove with the DA. You're going to, if it's a high profile case, you're going to be running against the media. And we saw in our previous live streams how the media narrative is really potentially prejudicing potential jurors because of the way they are portraying Luigi Mangione before the trial is set to take place. So you have that against you. So all the mayor's office, of course, because in this case the mayor is getting himself involved in this case. So you have the entire state of and the federal government, by the way, in his case. So he has the federal government on him, state of New York, the mayor's office, mainstream media, CNN, Chris Cuomo, right? The district attorney's office, I think I mentioned them already, the NYPD, the FBI, all of those groups are against him. This is what people don't understand. So they have vast resources, and if you ever go up against the DA, you're outnumbered. They have the advantage. So whatever number that they raise for his defense fund, it's peanuts to what the state is going to be able to marshal against Mangione. Okay, so I just show this just to show you guys that, first of all, that I've seen that video out there, that apparently he she had been um, interviewed by Chris Cuomo, and apparently it was like a zinger or something, you know. So just to show you guys, I did begin watching their podcast, the video that I'm going to react to today. But notice the red line there, right? I stopped right there. So I'm going to react to this video at the point where I stopped right there. So it's watch the beginning, but not the rest of it. Okay, so this is not going to be a fake reaction video where people claim, oh, I've never heard that song before. So that's right there. So that's where I stopped on the video. Okay, so just to show you guys the receipts, and here's the other video. This is the original video. I think if you see right there, and look, it's timestamp at the top left right there. I have not watched that video, the original interview on the News Nation. There. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting reaction. I think this is the thumbnail to their video. So let's get right to it then. We're gonna go ahead and react to the video. Here we go.
Yeah, this was crazy. I didn't think it was gonna be as adversarial as it was for some reason. Somebody told me that he really likes the band Idols, and I was like,
I don't even know who
oh,
that
well,
is.
they're pretty woke. Like, I like
Okay.
Idols. Maybe he's like more of a leftist than I thought.
I
But
don't think so.
no, as the second I got on, he
Mara
was just like
Cuomo-san,
scolding me
that
like I was a
Dynasty
child
family.
and he was my dad.
Oh, God.
It kind of had the same energy as that clip. I don't know if you saw it, of like this kid is dressed up like the shooter, and his mom is like, "No, this is not funny. You change right now." like
That's funny because I did a live stream where I screen recorded the CNN interview. I forget her name, but it was one of the African American anchor. She actually told the audience, "Stop." No, stop. Like, people can't do this. You can't think this way. You can't support. It's just it's bizarre, you know. And the whole scolding, it's not just on the left, it's on the right. You even Piers Morgan, it's like, stop, how dare you, stop.
like they played it on the Majority Report, and I'm also like, how old does he think I am? How
21.
how young rather does he think I am? Because he's talking to me like, young lady. This is a bit much, young lady. And then another point, he was like, I'm old. I've been covering this for 25 years. And I'm like, all right, I'm not that young and you're not that old. Like, calm down.
See, if I were her, I would have been a jerk on national TV. I said, you're not old, you're a dinosaur.
All right, executive producer Andrew Calloway, if you could go ahead and play that Cuomo.
So here's the video.
Man accused of assassinating United Healthcare CEO is a terrorist, says New York authorities. The official charge, first-degree murder in furtherance of terrorism. The New York Police Department commissioner said anyone who supports the accused or his crimes...
There's no heroism in what Mangione did.
What the fuck is
This
she
was
wearing?
a senseless act
You know
of
that
violence.
her dad's a billionaire?
It was a cold
No.
and calculated
didn't
crime
say.
that stole a life
It kind of looks like a diesel
and put
suit.
New
I ain't gonna
Yorkers
lie,
at risk.
I respect it, Joe.
We don't celebrate murders, and we don't lionize the killing of anyone.
She's a police commissioner
and any
in New York,
attempt to
and so
rationalize
this
this
is nepotism.
vile, reckless,
She was put
and
there because
offensive
of the
to our
family.
deeply
Her
held
family's very
principles of
wealthy, apparently.
justice.
Who's she talking about?
People like this.
Honestly, this guy should run for president if he ever gets out of jail. He literally stood in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shot someone in broad daylight, and everybody loves him, not despite of, but because of that.
Yeah.
And I think that is a beautiful thing.
Okay, so she Oh my God, what a legendary quote. She's referring to Trump's campaign speech. I think in 2016, he told an audience, you know, I could be in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot someone, and I wouldn't lose a single vote. I think that's what he said when he was running against Hillary Clinton. So, so she says, no, not he. You know, people are supporting Mangione not in spite of him, but because he murders. Okay,
Beautiful
that's
thing,
funny.
everybody loves him. Jamie Peck does. That's who you were just listening to. She is
Oh
also
God.
spokesperson for a legal defense fund, which has raised, ready for this, more than $150,000. Remember,
Oh my God, $150,000. Now it's $175,000. But like I said before at the beginning of this live stream, that 170. First of all, these lawyers who he hired, that guy Thomas Dickey, he charged someone. I was reading the. He received some reviews, I think, on Google, and I just did a little research on him when he was appointed to be Mangione's counsel. Somebody put on the review that he liked Thomas Dickey's rep, work, even though he did charge him, according to this guy, I don't know if it's accurate or not, he charged him $10,000 for 20 minutes. And apparently this guy, Dickey, made the charges go away, and so he didn't have to. Apparently they dismissed the case in his case, and he had several reviews like that. So that's just the guy representing him in Pennsylvania. Okay, 20 minutes, 10,000. So these lawyers, they're that $150,000 is probably be gone in 2 months if he accepts. He should accept it. And like I mentioned before, he's going up against the federal government, the state government, uh, the city, right, the DA's office, and the mayor is getting himself involved in this. The media is against him. The DA in Pennsylvania, and the mayor. I mean, not the mayor. The governor in Pennsylvania also did like a photo op, photo. He got in front of the camera, as with Josh Shapiro, and was making a big deal. Like, we apprehended the suspect because someone saw something, and they called that in. Same buzzword they keep repeating. Anyway,
this guy doesn't need the money.
170,000 now.
The irony is his family made a fortune.
okay. And again, he doesn't need like I said before, he's going up against the vast resources of the government. He needs whatever money he can get.
Off of health care, nursing homes. But
Who cares?
there's no
It's
question
relevant.
that on social media, there is a ground.
See that point right there? Look what he just said. This is stupid. What he just said right now.
Defense Fund, which has
Keep-
raised,
watch.
ready for this?
Listen to this
More than
part.
$150,000.
This
Remember,
part here.
this guy doesn't need the money.
$170,000 now.
The irony is his family made a fortune off of health care, nursing
Okay, so
homes. But
who cares? They keep repeating this. Oh, I've seen videos. Look at this. What a hypocrite. They made money off of nursing home. First of all, that's not the point. Number one. Number two, Luigi Mangione is not a CEO of a health insurance industry denying claims. That's the point. So we're not. This issue is not about nursing homes. Ironically, by the way, his brother was supposed to be in charge of keeping nursing homes safe during COVID, and apparently nursing homes, when his brother Andrew Cuomo was governor, were not safe. Ironic of him to be talking about nursing homes, to be even bringing that up. But this is the Cuomo dynasty. Oh God.
there's no
Okay.
question that on social media, there is a groundswell of support, especially among younger people, for this guy, but more importantly,
This
for
guy.
what he did. Why? Let's get the answer from one of them. Jamie Peck joins us now. Thank you for taking the opportunity.
Thank you for having me.
Help me understand, why is it a beautiful thing? Why do you support him assassinating another human being in cold blood?
So I was definitely joking a little bit, obviously drawing a comparison between what Donald Trump said about himself and the sort of explosion, this appetite, this excitement for the conversation
run for
that
president.
Luigi Mangione started. But I do think to call this an act of terrorism is an insult to the intelligence of the American people. Terrorism is something designed to strike fear into the hearts of non-combatant civilians, right? The general population. Nobody but a tiny class of CEOs has been made to live in fear by Luigi's actions, but nearly everybody knows what it's like to live in fear of having a necessary medical claim denied. The fear of having your life ruined or potentially ended by a stack of medical bills. And I think in a system with so much...
I love what she did. She's done something that the left, both liberal, progressive, socialist, communist, all of those people, the mainstream establishment types even, what they failed to do. Notice how he framed the argument, right? Oh, this guy's a hypocrite, you know, you're supporting him. Why would you support him? You're stupid. Look, he killed this guy in broad daylight. You know, he's a terrorist, right? I mean, she argued rightfully, because it's under the definition of terrorism under state law, is if you have the intention to, one of the elements states intention to strike fear to the civilian population. She's arguing he didn't do that. What I said before, he didn't do that. And we looked at it in the previous live stream at the list of charges. He didn't do that, right? In fact, significant segment of the civilian population supports what he did. Either somewhat supports or supports, highly supports what he did. Okay, I'm not saying that what he did was right or wrong. Okay, but just pointing out that the terrorism charge fails under that element. She changed the framing, his framing, to basically start talking about how insurance companies strike fear into the lives of people by denying them their claims. It stresses them out, and in some cases it leads to death. That's the real terrorism. And she said it, as I'm just struggling to try to explain what she said. She said it brilliantly. Actually, let's go back and listen to
his family made a fortune off of healthcare, nursing homes. But there's no question that on social media, there is a groundswell of support, especially among younger people, for this guy, but more importantly, for what he did. Why? Let's get the answer from one of them. Jamie Peck joins us now. Thank you for taking the opportunity.
Thank you for having me.
Help me understand. Why is it a beautiful thing? Why do you support him assassinating another human being in cold blood?
So I was definitely joking a little bit, obviously drawing a comparison between...
I don't think another human being, you know, he's a CEO.
Between what Donald Trump said about himself and the sort of explosion, this appetite, this excitement for the conversation
run for
that
president.
Luigi Mangione started. But I do think to call this an act of terrorism is an insult to the intelligence of the American people. Terrorism is something designed to strike fear into the hearts of non-combatant civilians, right? The general population. Nobody but a tiny class of CEOs has been made to live in fear by Luigi's actions, but nearly everybody knows what it's like to live in fear of having a necessary medical claim denied. The fear of having your life ruined or potentially ended by a stack of medical bills. And I think in a system with so much violence that's directed from the top down, it should come as no surprise when violence begins to boomerang back from the bottom up onto the 1%. Also, I would like to remind you on the subject of terrorism, nearly 3,000 Americans lost their lives on 9/11, right? This is the largest terrorist attack this country has ever seen. An estimated 190,000 people are murdered each year by our broken healthcare system. That is the equivalent of 52 9/11s worth of deaths every year. Every single week, another 9/11 happens. So I got to ask,
Who is the more prolific terrorist in this equation?
So I gotta give a shout out to my girl Lena for doing this research and having the idea to measure things in 9/11.
The most American unit of measurement, and here
too.
I was thinking it was a cheeseburger.
No, because that is one thing that Cuomo's viewers understand and respect. And even when I brought up 9/11, you could see him like thinking about it, like
ceremonial nod, like
never forget. So that is something that the wealthy boomers watching cable news at least respect and understand.
I can't believe you said that shit on prime time television. That is so fucking hard.
It was really good.
I tell it like
really
it
good.
is.
One 9/11 every single fucking week.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, that's the high estimate, to be fair. The low estimate is maybe a 9/11 like every 2 weeks.
My God, that's so much better.
Though, to be honest, I mean, it's brilliant. I do, but many people would understand that but people who lived through it, I think too that young people who are not alive when 9/11 happened, because we have people now who if they were born on 2021, the day after 9/11, would right now be 23 years old. So everybody 23 and under did not live through 9/11. Didn't experience, didn't have absolutely no recollection of absolutely whatever. Absolutely at all. As to what happened on 9/11. But everybody else who's older, maybe let's say than 30 years old, or the late 20s and above, would have some type of recollection and would kind of, though when you're young and you're small, you probably don't know what's going on when 9/11 actually happened, or something like a big news event like that, like Pearl Harbor, or the JFK assassination, and so but it's still brilliant. I think every 9/11 is happening in this country when insurance companies are denying claims. I think it's good reference. I think like I said, I think for very young people who are just starting college or in high school right now, or in the schools, they probably don't have any clue what that is, because they're not really teaching that in the schools, because it's very, very recent history. At least most of the schools, they're not going to be doing lesson plans on that.
Oh yeah.
Well, first of all, as you may know, Jamie, terrorism is a specific legal standard, right?
You don't say.
There's no question that Luigi did what he did in furtherance of a political agenda. He said it. Okay? So I don't see this as a question of fact or law. It's about the policy behind it. What I don't understand, and you are somebody who in your positions is constantly trying to embrace the humanity of situations, right? I've been looking at why you support what you do with what's happening in the Middle East conflict. To me, this seems to be anathema to this. Nothing within a system gets changed by violence.
So
what is he talking about?
Two things.
That's not true.
So he's using my position on the ongoing.
So, I mean, are you serious? Like, you just go back. I mean, even before the founding of this country, right, the 13 colonies, they were settled through violence. At one point, in the beginning, probably not so much, because the English settlers, the English separatists, like they call themselves, were not really powerful enough to fend off against many of the native people that they encountered in like Jamestown or Plymouth Rock, but it later became violent. And that's how these 13 colonies were established, most cases through violence. There were exceptions like William Penn in Pennsylvania, right? But even after William Penn, the people there in that colony in Pennsylvania really did not have the most friendly relations with native peoples in that part. The American Revolution, right? Even before the American Revolution, the French and Indian War. Well, we call it the French and Indian War. They call it the 7 Year War in England. I mean, that was done through violence. The American Revolution, the The Civil War was a big one. You know, it was about slavery, and then more than 600,000 people in both the North and the South in the U.S. Well, the South had split and called themselves a Confederacy, right? Died in that war, and then even some slaves had to fight for their freedom, and slaves died. You know, that whole system of slavery was violent in its own nature. It was just brutal. You know, people died, and the abolitionists tried the nonviolent method for the most part, and that really it helped to raise the consciousness of the nation, their advocacy, but what ultimately finally ended the slavery in this country was the war. You know, the North had to come in there and destroy the South's infrastructure, like Atlanta. So that the slave owners, the North had to like take their power from them through violent force, because they were not going to give it up, because there was the economic interest, because cotton had become the number one exporting crop in the U.S. and had become very lucrative by 1860. You know, at the dawn of the Civil War. You even look at things that are deemed as non-violent protests in our history, the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. Those were violent too. They became violent because the states, governments in the South and in some cases in the North, used repression against those people. Right? So, what are you talking about? And then violence is just so part of the American psyche and the American history. Just everything that this country does, every solution that they have for things, sometimes there's going to be an element of violence somewhere in it. You know, it's just unfortunately a part of the sick American psyche. So what is he talking about? You don't change things through violence.
Genocide in Gaza. To call me a hypocrite. He's comparing this single guilty as fuck CEO who got assassinated with the thousands of innocent people who are currently being massacred
but that just tells you
by
whose lives matter
U.S.-backed bombs. And that is just
not the average person.
That's absolutely insane to me.
I mean, to me, that implies that Chris Cuomo creates a sort of ethical equivalency between the life of one white American corporate health executive and 100,000 dead Gazans.
He's also leaving power out of the equation, right? He's looking at it in an extremely narrow way.
Not just that, but I just think with the Gaza thing, if it were not brought up, people like him wouldn't even want to acknowledge it to begin with.
And not looking at the full picture. So I am in favor of oppressed people rising up against their oppressors. I am on the side of the underdog, typically, which in the case of Israel-Palestine is certainly the Palestinians, the people who have been colonized and made to live in absolute fear for their lives, which I will say the more apt comparison, if we're making comparisons between this thing and that thing, would be all of the people in this country who are made to live in fear of being hurt or dying as the result of their shitty insurance companies. So in that case, I think I'm being perfectly consistent when I side against the oppressors. But yeah, he's making a very, very, very narrow analogy in an effort to paint me as a hypocrite.
Terrorism is when you scare the corporate oligarchs who think they own this country. But at the end of the day, standing up to the kings who think they own you and your well-being and all of the value that you will ever gather and the rest of the country, is as American as apple pie.
Yeah, when he says nothing in a system gets changed by violence.
Has he ever read a history book? Did he pay attention in class at all?
Like, he knows that that's
knows.
not true, right? His
know.
viewers have to know that that's not true.
All of history is a clash
lot
of
of viewers
power.
don't
But
know,
again, like, I
unfortunately.
did not want to go down any of these roads he was trying to lead me down.
No, because he's trying to get you to advocate for violence on television, which is such a shitty thing to do as another human being, is to try to trick somebody into doing something that they're going to regret, you know? Like, that's scummy. That's just scummy fucking behavior.
Okay, we'll stop right there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I will say,
yeah, I didn't watch. So I don't know where this ends. I will watch the interview in its entirety. I wanted to react to their channel first because their channel, Party Girls, it's right there. So they deserve to get more engagement, and so I decided I'm gonna go to react to their channel instead and not to the News Nation interview. So go ahead and give them. Oh, I gotta sign. I'm not even signed in. I wanted to subscribe, but I will subscribe to them once I'm signed in here. I thought I was signed in. Okay. But yeah, they know better. They're not going to, they're not going to, they're not going to they're not going to acknowledge Brian Thompson's corporate violence towards his customers. And if they do, it's because they have to, right? So, for instance, if there's a trial, if Luigi Mangione makes it to federal court and then the state court, and because the state raised the issue of terrorism, and Luigi Mangione's defense starts presenting a defense, and it contains criticisms, critiques of the insurance industry, then yeah, people like Chris Cuomo will be forced to respond to it. But I think that's the only explanation. Right now, their only their only narrative right now. Oh, this was a father. I think 2 children. Father of 2. Is a husband. They don't bring up the fact he had been separated from them. They weren't living with him. I'm not bringing that up to be a jerk or to make seems like his life is less. But they're the ones bringing this crap up that he's a father. But so the customers of a United Healthcare are parents, fathers, and mothers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandfathers. Autistic children, like we talked about before. They're people too. Okay, so where's the humanity for them? And like they've said too, the mainstream media is only ascribing humanitarian traits to this one CEO, this one person, a white male who represented corporate America, right? Who's involved in insider trading, allegedly. Okay, so he gets that treatment, right? He had been accused of insider trading, and inappropriately, his company inappropriately denying people claims, but the media gives him a pass. Yet you have Luigi Mangione commits one act, and they're not going to give him a pass because he's not supposed to get out of line like that. Now, again, we're not advocating violence here, but what I'm saying is keep everything in perspective. Okay, so this is a lot of. I hate when people do this. They're like they make things like black and white. George W. Bush would do that. It's either good or evil, right? Well, there's sometimes there's gray, right? Or there's complexity. But I'm sure Luigi Mangione is like not the angel, right? That some people present him. I'm sure he's had, right? But I'm sure that the guy Brian Thompson was probably a good guy when he was growing up. You know, when he was probably young, going to school, and you know, we read that quote on the article in the Washington Post that he had second thoughts of his job because of what they were doing. Okay, but I mean that's just beside the point. That's irrelevant. You know, again, the whole point is what happened, right? Someone was murdered. Why were they murdered? Well, they're a CEO. Okay, they're the CEO of a health insurance company. Well, why did that guy kill this? It appears that the guy killed him because of what he said. If we take his manifestos, his alleged manifesto, at face value, is because of the crappy health outcomes that our that our healthcare industry in this country has. We spend the most than any other nation, and are, according to Luigi Mangione, 42 and 42nd place in health outcomes. Really pathetic, right? And in one year, apparently, I remember this, Cuba, a little country we hate so much, a communist country, was ahead of the United States in providing services, healthcare services, to people. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, good, interesting. The whole thing with violence again. I mean, even 9/11, right? That was violent. And how did the U.S. respond through violence? And actually, what did the U.S. do? They attacked a country that was not even involved in the 9/11 terrorist attack. The 19 hijackers were allegedly involved on the 9/11 attacks. 15 of them actually came from Saudi Arabia. None of them came from Afghanistan. But the George Bush administration tried to connect Iraq to 9/11. That's what they were doing. That came out. Okay, that came out during his administration. And the guy who leaked it, by the way, was his Secretary of Treasury at the time. Forget his name. I think his last name was O'Neill. I might be wrong, but he leaked it that the day after 9/11, Bush, at a cabinet meeting, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, tried to push the narrative that Iraq was somehow behind 9/11, and he wanted answers from the CIA and so forth. You know, a book came out when that happened. By the way, by I think it was co-written by that guy, the former Secretary of Treasury, and then with another writer. But again, look, the U.S. 9/11, they responded by invading two countries that had nothing to do with 9/11. Yeah, and then they falsely lied. They lied. They they accused Iraq of having WMDs, right? And then remember Condoleezza Rice? For some of you who were old enough to be alive back then, it's like we need to take action, preemptive action, before a mushroom cloud appears in our backyard. Right? And these people completely lied. And so Chris Cuomo, like, well, what are you talking about? Our histories, even our recent history, is just replete with violence. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, so tell me what you think in the comments, and thank you, folks, for those of you who are watching. I don't know if anybody's watching. Thank you so much. And I don't have the chat because I don't know if people. I know somebody had commented before on the chat. I don't really have the chat function here. But if you have before, thank you. Please subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think about this interview. And again, I'll try to watch the other interview. I might react to the CNN one or the entire Chris Cuomo interview. But this was enough. I think it was good. Okay, guys. So thank you so much. Really enjoy the holidays. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. This has been a PDR Live. To this night, Saturday, December 21st, 2024. Have a great night, folks.